as per our discussion in the session, so let's first of all observe on what is Java. Okay, now as you already know, what is Java? So Java is a programming language. Okay, it is a high-level programming language which was developed by James Gosling. So it was first released in the year of 1995 at Sun Microsystems. So it was first not named as Java, but it was actually named as Oak. Okay, so oak is nothing but it is the strength of a tree. Okay, so later on they just had this was one reason, and there was another reason that oak has already been a registered company. Okay, so for that reason they just named it as Java. Like when James Gosling has been discussing regarding the futures of Java and how to deploy this all of these things. So we were having a coffee, so he just saw that there's a coffee and the flames coming out of the cup of a coffee. So this they just named it. They just kept a logo for this. Okay, and if you wanted to see, there is something that comes under is Java Virtual Machine. So Java Virtual Machine, JDK, JRE, and JVM are a heart of Java. Okay, so to understand Java Virtual Machine, first of all, let me recap. I'll just give you an overview on what are the concepts that we are going to cover in this session. Okay, so the very first thing that we saw is what is Java, or in the introduction to Java. Okay, and now we are going to see JDK, what is Java Development Kit, what is Java Runtime Environment, and what is Java Virtual Machine, what are the pros or advantages of it and all. Okay, and then definitely you require some syntax, right? See, if you have any software that you need to use it, you definitely require some syntax or some data types. If you are writing some wrong syntax, okay, then you'll be getting some error message where the JVM will throw an error stating that this is not syntactically correct. Okay, all of these things let's see in further sessions. And then the another thing that's important is regarding the operators and the variables in Java. Okay, so you need to know what is an operator in Java and what are the uses when you're using those operators or operands in Java, and what are the variables, what is the use of using the variables, and how do we allocate the values into the particular variables, and how does it get and stored into the RAM. Okay, next there is some another important. This is a very important topic. Okay, this is something which is called as control statements. Okay, so what do you mean by control statements? So control statements is nothing but, see, the program, whatever the program that you're writing, okay, it is nothing but the set of instructions that you are giving to the computer, correct? So when you're giving some set of instruction, so what is the task of the computer? It should execute the program in a sequential order, and it should finish the execution that is aligned to the computer in a correct format. Correct. So now here we will be able to see there are three kinds of decision making control statements. Okay, one is decision making statement where you'll be having if, and inside the if you'll be having if else, nested if else. Okay, and then the second thing that comes in the decision making statements is switch statement. And then in the second thing, you'll be having looping statements, which is also called as iterative statements. So which is nothing but it also goes in iterating. Iterating is nothing but it is just a repeating process which is happening again and again. Okay. Then for loop, while loop, do while loop, for each loop. Okay, so the advanced for loop is something which is called as for each loop. Okay, you can also say it as an enhanced for loop. Okay, so for each loop is also called as enhanced for loop. Then you'll be having some another concept called as jump statements. So sometimes you usually have to break the particular statement, like when the condition you wanted to make it as a false, and then you want to break the statement, and then you wanted to skip some conditions, okay, when while you are testing or something like when you are developing. So then we'll be using this continuous statement. And I think you already know what is this object-oriented programming. Okay, so these OOPs are the very important concepts in Java. Okay, you'll be having abstraction, polymorphism, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. Okay, so now if I talk about abstraction, okay, abstraction is nothing but it's kind of hiding the details. Okay, hiding the details. So let me give you some small example on what is an abstraction. So let's say that you have a mobile phone with you. Okay, so you'll just give a call or you'll just send a text message. Whereas you don't require how to call, what is the transmission media, etc. Or else let me give you some casual example. Like if you go to the DMart or some Walmart, okay, and you'll be buying some groceries, then he'll just send the bill of whatever the groceries that you have purchased, right? So the groceries that are related to you in the bill will be shown to you. And there will be some many customers, so all of those bills will not be shown to you personally. Correct? So that is nothing but an abstraction. Okay, which means hiding the details of something which is not required to you. Okay, and then you have some different concept called as polymorphism. So what do you mean by polymorphism? Polymorphism is nothing but you'll be having it in a many forms. Okay, we'll just see this in a further session in a detailed manner. And then you'll be having this encapsulation. So what do you mean by encapsulation? Encapsulation is nothing but wrapping the data, which means you're joining the data. So let's say if you have a capsule with you, okay, and if you observe in the capsule or a tablet, you'll be having two colors, okay, so which means one is called a data and one is called a method. I'll just show you with the clear examples in the further session. So let's say you'll be having a class, and then inside the class, definitely it will be the combination of variables and a method. So what is a variable? Variable is something where it is holding some values. So what are the values? Values is nothing but that's a data. Okay, so the combination of variables and methods is something which is called as a class. So where we'll be having this in a many forms is something which is called as a polymorphism. Clear? And then here there's another topic which is called as inheritance. So what do you mean by inheritance? Inheritance is nothing but you are inheriting the properties. So from whom you are inheriting the properties. Okay. So in inheritance, you'll be having different kinds of inheritance like single level inheritance, multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance, hybrid inheritance, hierarchical inheritance. So we'll be seeing all of this in a detailed manner, but let me give you an overview on this. So inheritance is nothing but inheriting the properties from a parent class. If you want me to give a real world example or a real time example, okay, so what's that? Now, let's say now I'm a girl, okay. So I came from my parents, okay, which means I'll also have some similar features which my mom and dad have. Let's say my mom is very tall, okay, and my dad is very short, so I'm little taller. And let's say my dad is fair and my mama is dark, so I got this fairer skin. So which means we are trying to inherit some properties. So inheriting the properties, or you can give you so simultaneously you can say it as inheriting the genes from your parents is something which is called as inheritance. Okay, so let's see all of this in a detailed manner in the further session. Now, okay, so we have this exception handling. Okay, what is this exception handling? Now, as I told you, we'll be having syntactical errors and semantic errors also in this Java. So if it is syntactic errors or the syntax error, that is very easily identifiable by the user who are using it. Okay, because it will, I'll just show you on how it shows when we get an error. Okay, now if it is a real-time project and if you are trying to run your programs and if you are getting errors, okay, now if it is a smaller program, that is completely fine. But now, what if you are having a larger application in your hand, but you have to test it? And when you're testing it, you have to wait for so long and then you're getting an error. Correct? So in such kind of scenarios, there is some concept called as exception handling. Okay, which means this helps you to run your program in a smoother way. Okay, and it helps you to handle errors. Okay, let's say that I'll be giving you 1 by 0. Okay, so what is 1 by 0? Which will give you infinity. Okay, and let's say that it is, let's say I have given array size as 5. Okay, now when I say, let me give you a small example. Let's say that I'm available only for 5 students. Okay, so I'm taking only 5 students, and if I'm trying to add some another student in the like sixth student in the same class, where it will throw an error to me while you're writing a program, because you told that I need a fixed size of 5 people, which means only 5 students are allowed, but you're trying to enter the sixth variable or the sixth student, where in the memory it will not allow you to do that. Okay, so to handle, we'll be getting array index sort of bounds exceptions for that. Okay, so to avoid all of these kind of scenarios, we'll be using this exception handling. So we'll be having two kinds of exception handling, where one thing called as checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. So we'll be seeing that in the further session. Now, input and output in Java. I think I don't have to explain much in this, because you'll be having some different kinds of operations. You'll be having a read file, write file, input buffer stream and all. Okay, so we'll discuss that as well. as I told you that we are going to discuss about this JDK, JRE, and JVM. Okay, so first you also need to understand what's a library. Okay, so when you're running a tool, which means we will be having it as a combination of libraries and the frameworks for sure. Okay, so now let me tell you something. So to import or to write a program for some mathematical operation. Okay, so to write that, I'll be importing some package which is called as math package. Okay, and let's say I have already allocated some small value in the local way as a local variable, like inside the main method. Let's say that I have allocated a variable like int a is equals to 10. Okay, so this is said to be a local variable because I'm using it inside the class. But now let's assume that I don't want to give it in a local variable because I'm not only one user. I have multiple users who will be using this application. So I have to think in a broader way. So here we have a class called a scanner class for this. Okay, what is the scanner class for? So this scanner class helps you in writing or entering your input in a console screen. Okay, so we'll be having all of these different kinds of perspectives to understand. So let's see the some of next sessions. So this is just a conclusion and overview of your Java program. And here I'll be discussing with you regarding this JDK, JRE versus JVM. What are the OOPS concepts that comes into the pictures and the data types? So like what are the different kinds of data types, the primitive data types or the non-primitive data types, what all comes under the primitive, what all comes under the derived data types. Okay, and what are the different kinds of variable like local, static, and instance variables? What are the different kinds of operators? So arithmetic operators, logical operators, bitwise operators, there are ternary operators. Okay, so all of these operators and control statements, or this is also something which is called as control structures. Okay, so where we were discussing about the decision making statement, jumping statements, or the looping statements. Okay, and we'll also discuss about this, what are the classes, what are the objects, and all.